You know, that feeling, that immediate comfort when a friend just knows you need a hug, or that surprising jolt of connection, maybe from a really firm handshake with someone new. Those moments where touch isn't just, a sensation, but it makes an undeniable difference. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the surprising science behind those very moments, the science of human touch.
Exactly. And our guide through this really fascinating landscape is Michael Banissy's insightful book, Touch Matters. Banissy, he's a social neuroscientist, and he spent years, literally years, peeling back the layers on what is, well, arguably our most underappreciated sense.
Right. And our mission in this deep dive is to uncover why touch is so profoundly fundamental.
Huh.
How it subtly but powerfully shapes our well-being, our relationships, even our physical health. And maybe most crucially, we'll explore what happens when we simply don't receive enough of it. Think of this as your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about the complex, nuanced, and frankly vital world of human touch.
Yeah. And before we even start unpacking the science, I want you to take a brief moment. Just think. What three words would you use to describe what touch means? Just, let them come to mind.
Got 'em. Okay. Hold on to those for a second. Because here's something really remarkable. It's from the Touch Test, this huge global study back in 2020. They asked nearly 40,000 people across 112 different countries that exact same question. And the three most common words used to describe touch, consistently across demographics, regions, even genders, they were comforting, warm, and love.
It's striking, isn't it, that surprising consistency across such diverse groups. It suggests something truly universal about how we see touch. It really hints at its foundational role in the human experience.
So let's explore that foundational role, starting right at the beginning, our earliest moments. It's truly kind of mind-boggling to think that touch is one of the first senses we develop, even before we're born. Fetuses, according to the book, are already responding to maternal touch through the womb. They're actively exploring their environment. What does that tell us about its early significance?
It tells us touch is primal, absolutely primal. And this earliest form of interaction, it's actually guided by specialized nerve fibers in our hairy skin. They're called C-tactile afferents, or CT fibers. What's so unique about them is they respond best to a very specific kind of touch: slow, gentle, caress-like stroking at about 3 centimeters per second.
3 centimeters a second.
Wow.
Wow, that's incredibly precise.
It is, yeah. And what's truly remarkable is that this CT optimal touch, it's almost intuitive for caregivers. If you watch parents, they often spontaneously stroke their babies at precisely this speed. Our very biology, it seems, is wired for this gentle, comforting connection. It suggests touch isn't just, a social pleasantry, but a fundamental physiological need for well-being.
That's a profound thought, that this gentle caress we give a loved one isn't just learned behavior, but maybe deeply ingrained. So what kind of impact does this early tactile experience have on us in the long run?
Oh, the impact is significant and surprisingly immediate, too. Take a 2018 study from Oxford. Gentle stroking with a soft brush before a routine pinprick blood test in newborns. It actually reduced their pain responses. The babies showed less brain activity related to painful stimuli.
Wow. So it's not just comforting, it's actually a pain reducer from day one.
Yeah.
And I read about another study, 2021, I think, where 7-month-old babies who were gently stroked by their mothers showed less avoidance of angry faces. It's almost like that gentle touch helped them feel more confident to navigate the social world, even when facing something a bit scary. Can you elaborate a bit on how early touch might build that kind of social confidence?
Absolutely. It seems that consistent, comforting touch in early life provides a kind of secure base, or a foundation. And if we look at the bigger picture, the long-term effects are even more striking. There's this 20-year longitudinal study from Reichman University. They tracked mother-child interactions from infancy right into adulthood, and they discovered that early maternal tactile contact profoundly shaped social behaviors and even empathy responses towards strangers 2 decades later. Children who got more early touch from their mothers showed more coordinated social behaviors, and later as adults demonstrated greater empathy.
That's just an incredible legacy, isn't it, for something as seemingly simple as touch.
Mm.
And it's not unique to humans, right? The book mentions that fascinating study on gelada baboons, where grooming among females actually predicted whether they'd help each other out under attack. What does that shared behavior tell us?
It suggests a deeply evolutionary link. Just like social grooming among baboons builds alliances and cooperation within their group. This research hints that touch also contributes to cooperative social relationships in humans. It's like a nonverbal language establishing trust and solidarity.
Okay, so beyond social and emotional development, are there actual, tangible physical benefits to early touch?
Yeah.
especially for vulnerable infants.
Oh, absolutely. For preterm infants, massage and skin-to-skin contact, often called kangaroo care, lead to profound physiological benefits. Studies show these babies gained 47% more weight. They were released from the hospital 5 days earlier. And get this, by age 10, they had better sleep patterns, improved stress responses, and more advanced nervous systems. That's a significant difference, spanning a whole decade.
That's just astonishing. So it's way more than just nice to have. It's actually critical for healthy development, affecting everything from sleep to stress. I also saw something about maternal contact being linked to epigenetic protection, impacting genes related to immune and metabolic function. What does that mean exactly?
Right. It means that early touch can quite literally shape our biological blueprint, potentially offering protection against disease later in life. It's quite something. And this growing body of evidence is why we see real-world initiatives now. Things like Huggies' No Baby on Hug campaign, using trained volunteers to provide touch when parents can't, and UNICEF's baby-friendly standards, which prioritize skin-to-skin contact.
And it's not just the baby who benefits, right? Kangaroo care has been shown to reduce postpartum depression symptoms in mothers, and even new fathers reported lower anxiety and depression after skin-to-skin contact with their newborns. So for you, our listener, the key takeaway here is pretty profound. Touch is a foundational sense. It shapes us from our earliest moments, impacting our physical, emotional, and social development in ways that can resonate for a lifetime.
Okay, now let's dive into the brain itself. What exactly is happening in there when we experience pleasant touch?
Yeah, when we feel that, say, slow, gentle stroking, sliding up in our brains. And what does it tell us about how we process these sensations?
Good question. Pleasant touch activates a brain region called the posterior insula. This area is associated with perceiving pleasantness. It also increases connections to other brain areas involved in integrating emotions and bodily signals. So it's not just a superficial sensation, it's being woven right into our emotional fabric.
So it's literally connecting to our emotional core.
Wow. And I saw the superior temporal gyrus that's involved in judging social intentions, right? It activates more when slow stroking is particularly pleasant. So it sounds like pleasant touch actually helps us navigate the social world.
Precisely. It builds a link between feeling good and understanding social cues. And this is why it connects to our reward system. The brain processes pleasant touch as a reward, activating the orbitofrontal cortex and striatal areas, much like how we process other rewards like food or even sex.
So a gentle touch from someone you love can genuinely feel as rewarding to our brain as, say, our favorite dessert. That's quite a comparison. It is, and it really highlights touch's primal power to motivate and reinforce social bonds. This isn't just a pleasant sensation, it's a fundamental mechanism that makes social interaction inherently rewarding, making it as crucial for our social survival, perhaps, as food is for physical survival. And this is all tied into key hormones. Dopamine for pleasure and motivation, oxytocin for relaxation and bonding, serotonin for well-being. They all work together to make effective touch so profoundly rewarding.
But there's a fascinating nuance here, isn't there? Who is doing the touching really matters. The source points out that infant heart rates only decrease when stroked by a parent, not a stranger. And adults spontaneously stroke family and friends slower than they do strangers. Our brains are clearly very discerning about the source.
Indeed. It's not just any touch. It's touch from trusted, familiar sources that seems to elicit the strongest positive responses. Which brings us to another interesting aspect. Self-touch. We can't really tickle ourselves, can we?
No, you absolutely can't. Why is that?
Yeah. Well, that's because when you self-touch, your brain predicts the sensation. It kind of dampens down the activity in your somatosensory cortex, essentially saying, okay, I know what's coming, no need to fully process it. But self-touch isn't useless, not at all. It has stress-reducing benefits. Think about fidgeting or even hugging yourself, which can reduce cortisol levels. It also improves interoceptive awareness, our ability to perceive our body's internal state, which is linked to better mental resilience.
It's amazing how even that simple fidget is our body's way of self-soothing. And speaking of soothing, perhaps one of the most powerful forms of healing touch comes in the form of a hug, doesn't it? One man who started the Free Hugs campaign in Sydney back in 2004. He did it because a hug from a stranger literally changed his depressed and lonely mindset at the time. What does an anecdote like his tell us about the immediate, powerful, emotional impact of touch, even from a stranger?
It tells us that touch can be an immediate, almost primal antidote to isolation. His story really underscores that sometimes just a single act of consensual human connection can completely reset our emotional state. And the science largely backs up his personal experience. On average, people hug about 6 times a day, apparently, with more hugs on weekends. And there are all sorts of hugs, right? Crisscross, engulfing, varying in intimacy based on duration and gender.
What's genuinely fascinating are the health impacts. One study found that engaging at least 5 hugs a day over 4 weeks increased self-reported well-being in university students. Hugs can also buffer against negative emotions from conflict. And more frequent partner hugs are associated with lower blood pressure and higher oxytocin levels. So basically, more hugs, less stress.
Exactly. And it gets even more compelling when we look at physical health. A 2015 study showed that frequent hugging before exposure to a common cold virus actually protected against illness symptoms, apparently by predicting more efficient nasal clearance, which is often linked to perceived social support. Other research also found that daily hugging was predictive of lower markers of chronic inflammation.
So a hug a day could literally keep the doctor away. That's incredible. But it's important to remember, as you pointed out, much of this research comes from what we call weird populations: Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. So while compelling, it's not necessarily fully representative of global diversity.
That's a crucial caveat, certainly. And it leads us to consider other forms of healing touch. What about something as simple as holding hands?
Yeah, I found research showing that holding a stranger's hand can reduce threat-related brain activity during scary situations, like anticipating electric shock. And holding hands with medical staff reduced anxiety and epinephrine during surgery. Now, stronger relationship bonds do increase these benefits, but touch from anyone seems to offer some comfort. What does this tell us about the universal power of touch in a moment of distress?
It tells us that touch, even from a non-intimate source, can signal safety and support. It dampens our brain's alarm system. It's a primitive, powerful cue that we're not alone in a threatening situation. And then there's massage, which has ancient origins as a healing method, right? And modern science confirms its benefits.
Indeed. For preterm infants, just 15 minutes of moderate pressure massage daily for 5 days can lead to weight gain and earlier hospital release. And for stressed couples, giving and receiving massages can improve well-being. Physiologically, massage reduces the stress hormone cortisol and increases serotonin, which is linked to happiness and well-being.
And what truly stands out for me is the anecdote about Olivia, the lymphedema specialist nurse, and her cancer patients. She described how these patients, often inadvertently avoided by others due to their condition, would crave touch. And they'd find immense relaxation and emotional release from just a simple, gentle massage. It's a really poignant reminder that for many, touch isn't just comfort, it's a lifeline, especially when faced with illness or isolation.
Olivia's story truly underscores how simple, appropriate touch can be a powerful, low-cost intervention for profound well-being. But that story also brings us to the unsettling side of touch hunger. It's this profound gap between the touch we get and the touch we need. And the consequences can be devastating, can't they?
They really can be. The tragic case of Romanian orphans in the late 1980s is just a stark and heartbreaking example of extreme deprivation. These children, abandoned in understaffed institutions, received severely limited human contact, just basic care. The consequences were dire: unusual brain development, severe attachment disorders, persistent cognitive deficits, even years after they were placed in adoptive homes.
And it immediately brings to mind Harry Harlow's controversial monkey studies, where infant monkeys consistently chose those soft cloth mothers for tactile comfort over wire mothers that provided food. They showed severe psychological consequences without comforting touch, highlighting touch as a fundamental need, not just a luxury.
Right. And these weren't just isolated cases. Broader societal trends have been linked to a lack of touch. James W. Prescott's 1975 study, for instance, connected low physical affection in childhood to higher adult violence across different cultures. And Tiffany Field's 1999 study found American teenagers touched others less and were more aggressive than their French counterparts. It paints a pretty concerning picture of what happens when touch is absent.
And then, of course, came the pandemic. The COVID-19 lockdowns became this sort of global touch experiment, didn't they? Highlighting widespread touch deprivation. One study found a staggering 60% of surveyed adults reported touch deprivation, and it was directly linked to negative mood and sleep disturbances.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how individual differences played a role. People with an anxious attachment style who often crave closeness were more sensitive to reductions in touch during lockdown. In contrast, those with an avoidant attachment style, who tend to prefer more independence, reported wanting less intimate touch. It's a clear demonstration that our needs are highly personalized.
And certain vulnerable groups were particularly affected, weren't they? People living alone, those in nursing homes. They experienced increased touch hunger during the pandemic. I recall one harrowing account in the source from a woman whose father, with dementia in a nursing home, touch was their main source of connection, and then it was tragically denied during lockdowns.
Awful. And it's crucial to understand that touch hunger affects all ages. While older adults are certainly at risk of loneliness, young adults, especially those aged 18 to 25, they're often identified as one of the loneliest groups in society, and they also report significant touch hunger.
So with all this talk of touch hunger, what are some accessible personal strategies that, you or I could actually use to address it?
Oh, there are many, actually. Simple things, really, like taking a warm bath, learning to dance, engaging in tactile self-care like a massage or getting your nails done, using weighted blankets or interacting with pets, or even companion robots like HuggyBot or Pero the seal.
Right, those robot seals.
Hmm.
And beyond self-care, what's a crucial interpersonal strategy?
Communication. It's absolutely essential. Talking openly about your touch preferences, asking for permission before touching others, and really respecting boundaries are paramount. And for some, professional services like cuddle therapy, which involves consensual, non-sexual touch from trained professionals, can be a safe and beneficial option.
Okay. So as we consider how profoundly touch shapes us individually, it's time to maybe zoom out a bit. Look at its role in society and what the future holds. It's clear that everyone has a unique touch persona, whether you're naturally touchy-feely or more cautious. How much of that is influenced by our personal history?
Our personal history plays a huge role.
Yeah.
And as we just discussed, attachment styles are a significant factor. People with attachment anxiety often derive more benefits from pleasant touch. They crave that closeness. Those with attachment avoidance, however, might desire less touch overall. But it's important to note that the limited touch they do receive still yields positive benefits. The key isn't necessarily more touch is always better, but rather matching the quality and amount of touch to an individual's desire and comfort level.
So it's about finding that sweet spot for each person. Makes sense. Personality traits also shape our touch preferences, don't they? Extroversion, for instance, seems to predict positive attitudes toward everyday social touch, like handshakes and public interactions.
Exactly. Extroversion is a strong predictor, yeah. Even for self-care treatments like massage. Agreeableness and openness to experience also predict positive attitudes toward partner touch. But this also raises an important consideration when we think about neurodiversity. Differences in tactile sensitivity mean touch isn't universally beneficial. Hypersensitivity can lead to overwhelming sensations, a desire to withdraw from touch, while hyposensitivity can lead to sensory-seeking behaviors.
Right. I recall reading about fascinating examples like mirror touch synesthesia, where people literally feel what others feel when they see them being touched, or autonomous sensory meridian response, ASMR, which involves complex emotional and physiological responses to certain sounds or visuals, often with tactile components. So it seems crucial for us to understand our own touch preferences and be adaptable and communicative about touch with others, because these individual differences profoundly impact our experiences.
Absolutely. And these individual differences are further shaped by cultural context. Classic studies like Sidney Girard's 1960s coffee shop observations and more recent research, they show both striking cultural differences and surprising similarities in public touch frequency.
And the touch maps, studied by Julia Suvaleto, is particularly fascinating, isn't it? It clearly shows how emotional bonds consistently dictate where on the body touch is acceptable. Strangers are generally limited to hands and the upper torso, while common taboo zones like genitals and the butt are pretty consistent across cultures like the UK and Japan, but vary based on relationship intimacy.
Right. And cultural differences in personal space are also quite evident. Warmer climates, for instance, often lead to people preferring closer distances with strangers, while colder climates might see people prefer closer distances with friends. Romania, interestingly, showed large distances with strangers but smaller distances with close friends. Kind of specific.
But despite these cultural variations, affectionate touch is remarkably prevalent globally, like 96% for romantic partners and 95% for parent-child relationships. Warmer climates and less conservative individuals or countries tend to show greater diversity in touch behaviors. And getting older can actually decrease that diversity, interestingly.
So yeah, while cultures certainly influence touch norms, there are strong commonalities tied to emotional closeness. The nuanced message here is, we shouldn't pigeonhole individuals based solely on their background. Personal preferences and relationship dynamics are just as vital.
Okay, now let's talk about touch in professional and social settings, because this is tricky. There's definitely a significant touch skepticism in workplaces, isn't there? A 2019 UK survey found 76% of people wanted physical touch reduced in the office, and nearly 72% felt uncomfortable with a colleague touching them on the shoulder in public. Some places even have explicit no-touch policies now.
They do, yeah. And it's a challenging dynamic for sure. This raises a crucial question. When is touch appropriate at work? And can it actually be beneficial? Despite the skepticism, there are compelling arguments for its benefits when appropriate. In teamwork, NBA teams even track high-five stats, believe it or not. And research shows brief, positive touch from coaches enhances performance and trust for athletes.
And in customer service,
Wow.
brief, appropriate touch from waitstaff can significantly increase tips. In bookstores, customers who are lightly touched on the arm spend 63% more time in the store and 23% more money. Even just watching others touch products online can increase purchase intent. It's a powerful, almost subliminal influencer.
It truly is. Touch can also convey complex emotions like gratitude and sympathy, and even the sincerity of apologies. Handshakes, in particular, are really potent. They have this ancient history as a sign of trust, right? And they can predict job interview success. Even after 30 minutes, a brief handshake still matters. They influence perceptions of competence and promote cooperation and honest deal-making in negotiations. The physical contact itself sends a powerful signal of cooperative intent.
It's clear that touch holds immense power in these contests. But where's the line? Are there situations where touch can actually backfire, even with good intentions?
Oh, absolutely. Forcing staff to touch customers, for instance, that leads to discomfort and reduced future interaction. Bad idea. And in a surprising COVID-19 study, a comforting shoulder pat during the pandemic actually made people feel too secure and less likely to follow hygiene rules like sanitizing their hands. It had the opposite of the intended effect.
That's fascinating, almost counterintuitive. And then there's the beauty is good bias. People prefer touch from attractive individuals. And some research even suggests caregivers might be less affectionate to children they perceive as unattractive. It highlights how complex and often unconscious our responses to touch can be.
It really does. It underscores that while touch holds immense power in social and professional contexts, its impact is highly contextual. It profoundly depends on consent, perception, and cultural norms. It's definitely a delicate landscape to navigate.
Okay, finally, let's peer into the future of touch. Digital and beyond. Haptic technology is truly revolutionizing this space, isn't it? Tell us about some of the most exciting developments.
It's pretty astounding. Think about the Tesla suit. It's a full-body suit that provides tactile feedback in virtual reality. Two rugby players, nearly 100 miles apart, can train and literally feel tackles through the suit. It's bringing physical sensation into purely digital spaces.
That's incredible. And Meta's vision for virtual workplaces includes haptics and mid-air touch. The idea is to enable more authentic collaboration and emotional communication, even in virtual environments. Sort of. No more awkward video calls.
Exactly. And surgical robots are also being enhanced with tactile feedback, like the Terminator's hand from Converge Robotics Group. This technology is improving precision and enabling incredibly complex remote operations.
Wow. And for those seeking comfort, there are companion robots like Huggybot and Pero the Seal, designed to provide social touch, reducing anxiety, blood pressure, and pain in vulnerable groups like older adults. And for accessibility, fiber tactile watches can translate sound into vibrations for the deaf. And artificial limbs with tactile feedback improve walking speed, confidence, and reduce fatigue for amputees. That's huge.
Yeah, and the emerging field of haptic wellness is also really exciting. Wearables are being developed that deliver soothing vibrations to reduce stress and anxiety by regulating heart rate.
This all sounds truly transformative, making touch more accessible and beneficial in so many new ways. But does it raise any questions for you about the role of human touch going forward? Could virtual touch ever truly replace the real thing?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? While technology offers incredible potential, it's unlikely to replace fundamental human-to-human contact. The deep, nuanced, often spontaneous nature of human touch intertwined with our social and emotional needs. It remains central to our connections in a way technology can probably only augment, not fully replicate.
Right. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Michael Banissy's Touch Matters, what have we truly learned about this profound sense?
Well, we've seen that touch is a powerful, deeply nuanced sense, absolutely fundamental to human connection, health, and well-being. It's not just a feeling, it's a language and maybe even a biological imperative.
And supportive touch genuinely improves our lives, whether it's reducing stress or boosting our immune system. but navigating its complexities truly requires us to understand our own desires for touch and to empathetically learn about others' preferences, too.
Right. Touch is a flexible platform for communicating and building connections across diverse contexts, from the intimate caress to the professional handshake. It's how we signal safety, trust, and even love.
And while the future of touch, with advancing haptic technologies, is undoubtedly bright for accessibility and wellness, human-to-human contact will, for the foreseeable future anyway, remain irreplaceable.
Yeah. So, given how profoundly touch shapes us from our earliest moments to our daily interactions, and considering the increasing desire for it in an often disconnected world, how might actively and mindfully integrating more consensual quality touch into your own life and seeking to understand others' touch needs, how might that redefine your connections and well being? What new tactile experiences will you seek out or perhaps offer in your life moving forward?